Hey everyone, good to see everybody here. I'm so glad all of you took out some time on Saturday morning to be here. What we're going to be talking about over the next 45 minutes is basically about rapid prototyping and sprint. So I want to start off with a disclaimer. A lot of the engineers and techies might confuse this with the Spring framework, which is the Java framework. So that's not what we're going to be talking about. Some project managers might also confuse this with the agile sprint methodology, which is, sprint developments and all that, which again is not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how to solve big problems and test your ideas in a very fast and efficient way. And that's what we're going to be looking at. So let's look at this journey. All right. So, as if you are a product manager, if you're a founder, there are 101 ideas that you have, you want to be able to build. If you are a founder working for yourself, you have so many ideas in your own head. And if you're a product manager or product strategist, you're working with different stakeholders, right? So you have somebody from marketing, from engineering, from customer service, etc. And everybody has different problems that they want to solve for the product that you're looking to build. So with this, load of things that are already there, how do you think about what has to be built and how do you iterate and figure out what is the most efficient way to do it? So to be able to figure that out, what we're going to be talking about today is Google's design sprint framework. This is the book. I don't know if you guys can see it. So this book was written by this guy called Jake Knapp. He runs the design at Google Ventures. Google Ventures was the company behind lots of successful startups, including Slack, 23andMe, etc. So he came up with this. So basically, this has been a theory in Stanford, but he took this and he applied this to Google Ventures, and he came up with this 5-day process in terms of how to take lots of ideas and figure out what to be built when you're competing and thinking about different stakeholders. So it's a set 5-day process to get clarity on what's working and what's not. If you're in Chennai, feel free to stop by at Siam's office. We have the book. What I'd like to do over this presentation is, talk this through with a story and how we sort of implemented this for one of the clients that we worked with. And through that process, we can learn how this whole thing works. So one of the clients that we recently interacted with is Kaveri Hospitals. So Kaveri Hospital is one of the leading hospitals in Chennai, and they already have an app, and they approached us because they were facing multiple problems. They had so many different stakeholders at the management level, also at different divisions, departments. There is, outpatient, inpatient, pharmacy. So lots of stakeholders that have to be worked upon. They also have different users. They have the millennials, they have Gen Z, they have older, they have urban, they have rural. So lots of different users sets to be working on. They also had a constrained timeline. Then they wanted to figure out what will work best for them in that specific timeline. And since there were so many different stakeholders, they had different visions of the product as to what this product should do. And they all wanted to solve different pieces of the problem, right? So somebody wanted to say, hey, we will improve the pharmacy aspect in the app. Hey, this needs to be more on teleconsulting, etc. But overall, they wanted to also, sort of get together and figure out how to disrupt the hospital care business, right? So that was the underlying thing, but there were so many product ideas, problems, so many people's expectation to be managed. And we said, you know what, this is the best contender to apply the sprint framework, and we call them in. So the sprint framework, as I said, works over 5 days. It's a 5-day process. And we will go through each day one by one. But on day 0, you basically set the stage, right? So you find the space, you build the team that's going to be part of this particular process, and you identify the challenge. Then on day one, you understand, you map out everything that's there, and you figure out what is the key problem you want to solve. On day two, you visualize your requirements, you figure out what your ideas are looking like. On day three, you decide what has to be built. On day four, you build it. And on day five, you validate your results. So it's a 5-day process. And we look at each day and how we work with them through this whole thing. So on day zero, first, let's talk about this, right? So as I said, sprint is something that you're going to be doing collectively as a team. So what you want to make sure is that all the different stakeholders who have an opinion in this whole process are going to be in the room, right? So through that whole thing, what you're going to make sure is that not only will you get people who have different skill sets. So you'll have a designer, you'll have an engineer, you'll have somebody who can project manage things, etc. But you'll also make sure that you pick the right functional stakeholders, right? So if you're building this, if you're a founder and you're building this, then you want to have people who are influencing different aspects of your business, basically supply chain or user or etc. Or if you're, in our case, as we're doing this for Kaveri Hospitals, we wanted to make sure that the digital tech team was there, their in-house digital tech team was there, their in-ops inpatient doctor was there, people who have done the app in the past are there, etc. So one of the first important thing is to be figuring out who is going to be in that room, and you want to make it as diverse as possible so that you're able to get opinions from different aspects of that business. Second is logistically, day zero, you want to be able to figure out where you're going to meet. Ideally, one large hall space where you can meet and not be interrupted, etc. So that's basically nice conference room. In Siam's case, we met at Siam's office, and you also want to make sure there's lots of space to write on the wall, lots of things to stick on, etc. Then on day zero, this is all the stuff that you're going to do before you meet, right? So if you're going to be the product manager or the product strategist leading this is all the prep work that you do, right? So if you will make sure who are the people who are coming into the team, you'll get the space right, then you'll get all the tools. Because this is going to be prototyping, you want to make sure you have stickies, markers, you have cardboard, strings, whatever you think might be useful. Get all of that into the room. And then as a facilitator, I think it's important to set some basic ground rules. In our case, we said that no devices. So we put a box outside the conference room that said no cell phones allowed inside, so that we all are able to give 100% attention to what we're doing. Plan for breaks, assign roles, who's going to be taking notes, who's going to be in charge for figuring out coffees, meals, etc. Because as the sprint process begins, people will be busy, and you don't want to interrupt the conversations that are happening. So assign roles as to who's going to be doing what. And now the stage is set, right? So you have the team, you have the place, you have the tools, you have a whole agenda, and basically that's kickoff. So day one, the whole idea of day one is to be able to create a map, right? Now coming back to the Kaveri example, what they wanted to do is, as I said, they had all different problems and ideas, etc. On day one is the most important day where you are able to work with different stakeholders to figure out what is the one long-term goal that you want to work on, and what is that one key problem that we want to be able to prototype and figure out the solution for, right? So this is how it works. First is that since you have made sure that you have different people on your team, right? You have in Kaveri example, we had doctors, we had people who work at the front desk, we had people who do their existing tech, etc. Right? So, and we had somebody from management. So we had all these 4 or 5 different people, and we wanted to make sure that they all were able to present the problem from their own perspective. Now, this is the most, I think, one of the most powerful things in the sprint framework. When you're working with a large problem, or when you're working with a place where there are multiple ideas, what ends up happening is that each individual has a unique perspective to what the problem is, right? Or what they think the problem should be. So on day one, the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you create a shared knowledge about the problem you're working on, right? And we do that by conducting something called the lightning talks. So lightning talks are essentially 10 minutes that each stakeholder gets. And in that 10 minutes, they are able to tell what they think is the big grand problem that we should be solving for, right? So we go around the room, and the management team said, look, I want to be able to solve the problem of retention, right? Somebody from the digital team said, look, I want to be able to make sure that we get least amount of support tickets, because that is what was important to them. The admin staff who works at the reception said, I want to be able to reduce the waiting queues, right? So these are all the different problems that each stakeholder brought to the table, and they were able to explain why they thought this was the problem, right? So we did that. Once we did all of this, we created a map of we came together and we thought about what is the one long-term goal that we want to be able to solve, right? And so once you've heard all the stakeholders, you think about what is the one long-term goal to solve, and then you sort of create a map of all the various touch points that can influence this particular long-term goal. So for example, in Kaveri's case, our one long-term goal that we all agreed upon was how can we improve the hospital experience, right? As I said, there were so many different aspects that could have been solved. Should we increase our telemedicine business? Should we increase our pharmaceutical business? Should we improve the hospital experience, etc., etc.? So by doing this conversation and seeing the problems that everybody else had, we are able to come to one long-term goal that, hey, you know what, when we are doing this app, we want to be able to figure out how can we improve the hospital experience, right? And that is the big audacious goal that we want to do. And then we create a map. So going back to here, we create a map of the various touch points that can influence this big goal, right? So you have the home page, you have the appointment page, reports page, etc., etc., etc. And once you create that whole map, it becomes very visually clear to people to say that, okay, these are all the different touch points. And on those touch points, you're able to say, okay, what is the one key problem that we would like to solve, right? So in Kaveri's example, the one key problem that everybody had different ideas and questions and thoughts about was what should the homepage of the app look like, right? Because we have so many competing services and so many different reasons people come to the hospital, etc. And now that we're looking to solve the problem of improving in hospital experience, what should the homepage of the app look like was the key question that we were looking to solve. So this is what happened on day one, where all stakeholders gave their lightning talks. People talked about why that problem was important. We were able to create a map of all the different touch points that will lead to solving that big goal. And then from there, we were able to take one aspect and we said, okay, this is the thing that we need help on and we want to be able to figure out. And we will work on this particular aspect and then go forward. I'm just going to continue going. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and then I can stop and take them. So also on day one, since you have different stakeholders, you also want to set the expectations right up front. So the different stakeholders will set constraints saying, hey, we can do this, but this is the amount of time we have, or this is the budget we have, or this is the tech capabilities we have, so that you're not veering off the path too much and you understand the boundary conditions and you're able to work within that boundary conditions. So that is end of day one. At the end of day one, we are able to figure out this is the big goal that we want to solve, and this is the main problem of that big goal that we're going to solve for. All right, so next day, day 2, Tuesday, everybody comes in fresh in the morning by 9 a.m. People who have been assigned different roles to make sure people are coming in, breakfast is arranged, coffees are arranged. Great. What we do on day 2 is we start with setting the context. We revisit what were the different conversations that happened and what were the different problems that were discussed. And we spend the first 1.5 hours rethinking that the problem that we chose yesterday, is that the right problem to solve? And that can be a lot of times, once you've come back and you've gotten a good night's sleep, and literally the phrase is that let me sleep over it. You come back and you might agree that yes, this is the big problem that we want to continue to solve for, or you want to be able to change it, and you might get a different perspective. So you revisit that, you shuffle things around, and you're able to come back to the key problem that you are solving. In Kaveri's example, we were convinced that the problem we wanted to solve was improving in-hospital experience, as well as thinking about the homepage and the different aspects it would have on the homepage. On day 2, this is how it sort of kicks off. So once you have done that, what we do is day 2 is a day of solitary experience. Everybody works individually. Now that you've understood the goal and you've understood the problem, just how on day 1, as I said, that everybody has a different perspective on the problem. Same way, everybody has a different perspective on the solution as well, right? So day 1, collective problem setting. What we do on day 2 is individual solution giving, right? So everybody works individually and everybody sketches. The idea of sketching is to not make this into the next Mona Lisa or a great piece of work. And a lot of people initially feel like, hey, we can't draw, we can't do whatever it is. But the idea is just put, whatever idea and solution you have into a piece of paper and visualize it however you think it is, right? You don't have to be wireframing expert. You can even just do bullet points, different colors, draw whatever you think makes sense, right? But try to visualize it. It's important to visualize it, because we are, at the end of the day, we are visual creatures, and we understand what is being communicated. That's why we see all these old ancient paintings on cave walls, because that's how people learn to communicate as well. So we want to be able to go through that experience. You create solutions of what you think can be the your idea to solve this problem, and you start putting them on different sticky notes or different pieces of paper. You can create as many sketches as you want. There's no limitation. You have the whole day, do as many solutions as you want, take your time, etc. And but each idea that you have, limit that sketch to 1 or 2 pages and keep it together, right? So there are different techniques in this that we do. In this, the first technique we do is, just bullet point all the solutions you have, create a rough draft. Then we do something called magic of 8, where you create 8 different quick solutions of this. And then you take all the 3 things together and create a detailed, spend 30-40 minutes and create one detailed sketch of what you think is the solution. This is a technique that really helps to sort of get your brain juicing out and figuring out the solution. And then you get one idea, you draw it, take a sellotape and put it on the wall, right? Don't need to put your name or nothing on it. Just one headline that this is how I think about this idea, and your sketch over there. And then go back, do the exercise again, create as many as you want. Done. End of the day by around 4 o'clock. So this whole sprint process typically runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with coffee breaks and lunch breaks and whatnot in between. So by 3:34, with 3:30 we take a coffee break. Everybody is fresh and rejuvenated. And then we come back, and right after that coffee break, we now do something called lightning demos. So whatever you have done, right, for the problem, the idea that you sketched out, you take 5-10 minutes, 5 minutes exactly, to tell what was your idea and how are you attacking this problem, right? So you create lightning demos, And for that 5-10 minutes, everybody just observes and listens. Okay. Nobody is asking question at that point. Why did you do this? Why is this not possible, etc. Right? This is the place and point of just receiving, and the person who gets the stage just to present, right? And again, by 5 o'clock, we have done our presentations, and then we go home, right? So in a way, the 5-day process actually helps to not arrive at something in a very, although it's a 5-day efficient process, you're not making snap judgments, essentially, right? So this is what happened on day 2. As you can see, everybody is sitting in the office sketching. We had one piece of paper and they're all drawing out different versions of what they think the homepage will look like. All right. So on day 3, what happens in the morning is you come, and then this is when everybody has come now. And in the night, in the evening before, when people are doing lightning demos, you would have formed an opinion. Okay, Salma's idea is amazing. This is great. This we should do, right? And then you go with a set of convictions in your mind. But then again, what happens is that you get a night's sleep and you get to sleep over it, right? And then in the morning when you come back, you come back with a fresh, unbiased set of mindset. On day 3, you're coming back and now you're being like, okay, I have context, I know what was done, but here is a fresh start, here is a fresh time for me to think through what were the ideas that appeal to me the most. All right. So you go around the room. Everybody first starts off by saying, hey, I like this idea, but I had questions about this. You're approaching this idea in this particular way. What are the assumptions that you're making? And the idea is, by cross questioning, you are able to bring out the hidden assumptions that people have made when they thought about that idea, right? And then you put up a list of all the assumptions around next to that idea as you do the cross questioning. So far so good. So this is what happens the morning between 9 to 11. You cross question, you make assumptions, because this is important. So some ideas might look phenomenal, right? But if you don't understand the assumptions behind it, you might end up making a poor decision, right? So you do this between 9 to 11. 11 o'clock, another tea, coffee break. You come back. And by 11:30, what is happening is that by 11:30, when people come back, we give everybody sticky dots. They're just this round, like they look like bindis. And you come in and you have on the walls all the different ideas that people have done for this core big problem. And there are assumptions also laid out saying, to do this idea, these are the key assumptions that I'm thinking of. And now you are the boss, right? So you have X amount of votes. You can go around the room, see the idea, see the assumptions, and then choose to take your bindi and put it on whichever idea or feature that works. So the thing that I want to explain here is that you're voting, you could vote just for the entire idea, or you could vote for a individual feature in that idea as well, right? So both of the things can work. And you give your team half an hour to 45 minutes to be able to go around the room and vote for each of the ideas that are there. Once that is done, you basically will be able to see a good heat map of what everybody is sort of aligning towards, saying, yes, this idea looks really good. This feature looks really good. And then you have maybe top 3 or 4 or 5 contenders of what features and ideas you can do. Then you do another round of what you did in the morning, right? So you do this basically ends by 12:30. Everybody goes for lunch, comes back after lunch. By 1:32, you are sitting down again and figuring out what of these top 3 ideas or 5 ideas, what are the holes that we can punch on it, and arrive at the one core idea set that we want to work and prototype on. Over here, there might be a situation where you have 1 or 2 ideas competing with each other and having equal votes. This is where you will give super votes to key stakeholders, right? So if you have maybe the CEO, or if you think that the the tech guy, the product guy has the final vote on it. He or she can get one final extra vote, and then therefore you arrive at the core idea that you want to be able to work on. Now this is done by about 2:33, and by 3 o'clock, between 3 to 5, what you need to do is to create a storyboard detailing each step, right? So now that you have picked this idea, what are the different interaction elements that happen in each step, right? So in Kaveri's example, we were able to figure out that, okay, we want to think through what is our splash screens, what are the onboarding screens, and what do people see on the first homepage, right? And we were able to think through all the sequences and then tell them that, this is what the storyboard will look like, right? So now you have the storyboard. So let's take a summary of what has happened so far. So day 0, you set the stage. Day 1, all the different stakeholders came and said, okay, these are the different problems that I see. And this is my core goal that I want to work on. And of the core goal, we want to be able to figure out this one core problem. Day 2, each individual goes and sketches the solutions that they want. Day 3, you come and you're able to basically figure out which of the core ideas you want to be able to work on. And there's voting and discussion and all that. On day 4, this is an important step in this whole process. You take exactly just 1 day to create a prototype, right? A lot of the people that I know end up taking multiple days or multiple steps in order to be able to do this. But the idea is to have a mindset of frugality and speed. And you can use anything, right? So if you know wireframing tools, if you there are lots of online examples where people just draw on cardboards and are able to create a prototype. So the idea is that you just want to be able to build so that you're able to learn, okay, and able to understand what your user's reaction and experience is going to be. It's not really about making it functional, right? It should appear real, you should be able to understand what is happening and be able to understand how your users are reacting to this. So use any tool. In our case, we were using Balsamiq and Figma and whatnot. And divide and conquer, right? So give different aspects of the prototype to different people, and let everybody experience creating that solution themselves, and then you are working with them and stitching it back together and figuring out what that solution looks like. So basically, at the end of day 4, you have been able to create a prototype of what you want to give to your users and see how they react or experience to that user. All right. This is done. You feel good about it. This is the day where people end up working late into the night and a lot of things and madness is happening. And it's a lot of fun because the creativity of how to get this prototype alive and kicking is quite amazing to see. Then finally, you have day 5. So this is what we did for Kaveri. We are able to create a quick prototype on what we think the home screen should look like in terms of in-hospital experience, what a patient should be able to see, etc., etc. Now, day 5 is the final day. You want to be able to figure out and validate the hypothesis. So over here on day 5, you set the stage. You have your beautiful conference room. You bring in the end users and the different stakeholders. You bring the users one by one. With each user, there will be like whoever is going to be using it. Along with that, you will have one person who's facilitating the demo or the experience. And that interviewer will keep asking and nudging the user to go through the experience, right? It's important, I've written over here, it's important to set the context, but not to, influence the user so that they operate from a place of bias, right? So in our case, we came that, hey, you are a patient and you've come to the hospital, etc. And you have a digital product. Here is the product. That's all, right? And then we want to be able to see what is happening. So since this, in this case, this was a live user, what we ended up doing was we had different people observing how this is working out and seeing the reactions of the different users on what how the app is looking. Yeah, ideally, you can also set up cameras and record this whole experience so that you can go back and watch what is happening. It's important to be able to conduct user interviews before and after. So before, when the user comes in, understand who the user is, what their journey is like, etc. It's important to do that because once you do the experiment with the prototype with that user, the after will be much more richer in context now that you've understood who the user was before. So there is a before, then there's a during, and then there's an after. Before, you're understanding who the user is, and during, you're nudging them to experience different aspects of the product. And then in after, you are asking them, hey, how did you feel about this? What happened? Etc. Etc. And all of this is being recorded. In our case, we didn't, but it could ideally be recorded and seen. You can record all the conversations and discussions that are happening. So this happens, a good number set is like 5 to 10 people of different types. I have seen examples of people running ads on in the US, they use something called Craigslist. Or here, you could just put up a Facebook post, say that, hey, we are willing to give 300, 400, 500 rupees for one hour, 1,000 rupees per hour for people to come and do this experiment. If you are running this as an existing product, which was in Kaveri's case, they took it and showed it to their existing users and got feedback. So any which way you could do this. After that, so all of this happens till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then you go for lunch, you come back, and then end of day 5, we are able to sit down together and observe all the learnings that we had from this, right? So, hey, we made this, we picked this particular problem and we picked this particular idea and we built it out in this particular way. And this is what the user experienced. This is what they thought. This is what they could find, they could not find, etc. And it's important to be able to write down all of these observations and tabulate them so that you're able to step back and see that, okay, this is what happened, right? What ends up happening in most cases is that now start to finish, this whole thing took us 5 days, right? What ends up happening in most cases when you're building these products, this whole thing can end up being like a 3 to 4 month long process, right? Before you actually begin to get user feedback. Imagine a situation or scenario where you are doing the design, then doing the development, then testing, then release, then launching it, and then the users come. Even the most efficient engineering teams can take minimum of 3 to 4 months from day 0 to launch, right? But over here, in 5 days, not only have we managed to involve all the different stakeholders, not only have we brought different ideas from different contexts out of in the front, so that we have a very wide and varied solution set. Again, in a typical product strategy process, what ends up happening is that the idea and solution will come from one single source, right? It is a strategist or the tech team who are thinking of the solution. But over here, each of the users are able to visualize the solution and are able to think about how they would think, and you're able to collate all of that together and build this whole product. Yeah, so this is what happens end of day 5, and you come together and learn from observations. The results of the sprint is one of 3 things, right? Either you have an efficient failure. So what happens is we made a terrible assumption, and we built a product and prototype, and nobody understood what is happening, and it didn't solve any of the problems that we thought it would solve, right? But then it's an efficient failure, as I said. We're able to fail in just about 5 days versus taking 3 months to figure out. Or you have flawed success, which is that you have something, some ideas, some features that work, and others that didn't, and you are able to go back and either you can repeat this process again for some of the things that you want to be able to fix, or pick and choose the features that really work and start implementing those. Or else you can end up with an epic win where you are able to guess the right problems, the right ideas, the right solutions, and your users loved it and they were able to relate with it and truly adopt it into their whole user journey and user experience. So that's basically the highs and lows of the sprint framework. I have summarized this book and videos and the whole process for you guys in about the last 30-40 minutes. I'd be happy to take any questions, thoughts, etc. Ideally, I would have liked to do an activity on this, but we need a lot more time. It's a lot more sort of detailed, and then we would need a space and all that. I didn't want to go down that path, but I'm happy to take any questions and thoughts that you might have.
Khuzema, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there any specific, participant profile? Like, do you think we need a tech person, a business person, a marketing person, like the whole unit to come together? Or is it okay if the founder and, a couple of others sit down? What's the profile of the participants?
So it depends, no? If an early stage founder, you're an idea, then ideally, see, let me give a rule of thumb, okay? Try to get people of different backgrounds to the same problem. As many different people of the same background. Don't worry too much about, hey, I need an engineer to create my prototype. You don't need an engineer for that perspective. So if you're an early stage founder, then your co-founder, if you have potential users that are going to be able to use this, or I wouldn't say users, but people who could have a say, right? Like if you're building, let's say, Swiggy or Instamart, then one of the stakeholders is the person who is packing it, okay, and the person who is at the grocery store who is receiving the order, right? So bringing them will understand what are the problems that they see in this whole process, right? So diverse set of people will attack the problem from different angles, right? And it's important to get that whole collective knowledge into the same group so that richer product solutions come out.
And they don't even have to be the potential partner or whatever, right? They could be connections from the industry.
Yeah, they should be connections from the industry, domain people, etc. Because the actual user of the product will come on day 5. Where you build the prototype and you will take it to them and be like, hey, this is what I think should solve your problem for packaging it or delivering it or whatever it is, right? So that happens on day 5. On day 0, when you're picking the team, as you said correctly, you want different people from different aspects of the industry coming in together into the same room.
Perfect. Thanks, Jose. And we'll open for everyone else. I have another question. I'll go in the last. And that question, as very simple as, I would like you to share a success story, which you did, and maybe, just give a quick brief on that, but let's keep it last. Let's open it for others. Requesting everyone else to open for questions. Please unmute and go ahead and ask your question. There are some of the members who joined in late. Dilip, I think even Chid joined in late. So we'll definitely, because do you think we'll be able to just quickly take 5 minutes and run through the previous presentation? There were quite a few members who joined in just 5 minutes or 10 minutes back.
We can ask the members itself, no? Would they want a quick summary?
Yeah. So for others, if you want us to just briefly run you through the presentation, we'll do that. But if you have questions, please shoot.
I just have Dilip this side.
Yeah.
I have just one question, like how to grow team in an initial phase, like because it is difficult to find the people because once you not have a network.
Sorry, what?
My question is to like how to find the right people in the initial phase when you don't have a network.
So let's say, there's so many online communities available now, right? That you can just go and ask people to come and participate saying, I'm doing this. Um, Ideally, domain experts will be willing to give some amount of time. Otherwise, you can always say that I'm willing to compensate you for the time and insights that you bring. Uh, from the whole domain side of things, if you're just a fresh startup, it gets a little difficult for a fresh startup to do this. So if you're at an idea stage and you're looking to do this and you want some domain experts to come in, this is a couple of ways in which you can ask your community, different online communities to help you out and participate in this co-building process and building out the solution together. But ideally, you have sort of moved a little forward from just ideating the problem itself, like the idea itself, and you're figuring out what the best way to figure out the solution is. And in that case, you will have some stakeholders that you're working with, and you should be able to bring them in.